All right, so let's have a little bit look on the maps, shall we? For some reason, when we played yesterday, we always got, or at least I always got in the same team. So every time we played Arica Harbor, we were the Russian team. And that means that you spawn over here, you rush in, and you take A1 and B1 as fast as possible. And usually, if you're really quick about it, so yeah, there is no like countdown and stuff when you get into a server. Just spawn right away and just start running. And you can actually take 1 or maybe even 2 objectives before the enemies start to spawn even. And your squad can actually spawn on you. If you rush to B1, don't go to A1 and cross over here. If you really need to, sure, you can do it, but you are really, really exposed. And you don't need to be in the building to take it, I think. You can be over here, actually. But the suggestion is to cross as soon as possible over here, and then you go through this hangar or warehouse or whatever it is. You stay on the left side, and you make sure that no one flanks you. And then you can go using this container, and you can go in this entrance, and you can just wipe out the entire building. And that is actually the... I mean, if you're smart about it, you use the Pokeballs, and then you give yourself ammo, and then you can use another Pokeball when you get closer and the first one starts to wear out or it's out of position. You know exactly where everyone is, and just listen for maybe there can be someone out here. And then you want to go for C1, and by this you should be having control of this entire area. Basically, you should be able to push them all the way back to the spawn, and you can set up camp here, actually, if you be a little bit careful. And obviously, if you go for C1, you should try to push them so you have this line over here. You can be inside the building, can be here using the containers, whatever, and you can actually spawn rape them. There's a lot of cover that they can use, so they can push forward all the way up here, and someone can be shooting from here, and they can actually be under the bridge as well, and they should be able to mount an offense to either push straight for B1 or they should be able to take C1. That's fairly okay. The problem here with Russia is that you're going downhill, and while you're coming out here, you are exposed from this building, definitely exposed in that building, and you are exposed for all the people up here. So you can't really get into the point without having to cross an open area where they have cover. Whereas from this side, you can actually go in cover, you can go in cover, and they can go entire way to the building in cover. So I think the US side in this map is beneficial when it comes to the possibility of not being spawn raped, so to say. You saw the last map was kind of linear. Some are more linear, some are not. This is not actually. This is asymmetrical, and you have these 3 objectives. The problem with this map is, and it's actually a quite huge one, I don't really understand why they picked this area in this way. So let's say you are US, and you can actually go, usually you can go all the way up to the containers, or you can flank the northern route here to B1. Because defenders at B1 are going to be a little bit spread thin. Either they have to defend A1 or they have to defend B1, or they can defend both, but it's hard to establish a line on the containers. It's usually in or on top of the building, which makes it possible to actually push all the way to the containers from the US side. So the US has a very big advantage here. Again, for some reason I always play that same team, so on this map I always played as Russians. Usually, I think this was a fun map because you were switching objectives all the time. You went for C1, you went to B1, A1, and you went a little bit around, and you had some fights, and it went a little bit around the other way, and lots of switching objectives. That's fun, right? It's not like this linear where you get one and the next and the third. It's always a lot of switching and stuff. But when your team is inferior, like a lot, this map is absolute dogshit. What happens is that you can actually go C1, A1, and you can take B1 even, because you maybe spawn right away and you run and you're fast. And if the other team has some better shooters, they can take control of A1. And soon it becomes really hard to push from C1 to A1. And they can take control of B1. And they can actually lock you out. Just as you can do this way, but not really though, because they can actually go up here. You can't really do that over here, because this area is open. So if you try to cross from over here, up here, and there, these covers aren't sufficient. And it's a lot of open space. So this is not really great. I mean, there are some open space here, but this area over here, there is plenty of cover. So there is this difference. And the other part is, especially if they push you all the way in here, they can establish the line over here, here, and over here. And you spawn over here, and you first need to cross this open space. And they can actually, you see they have sight lines over here, so they can actually shoot you and they can get on top of things. So they can actually shoot you directly when you try to cross this area. And there's no other way than in here. So if you go on the outside of the wall, they can peek here, shoot you. I mean, that happens in normal case. This is not a good flank route, because you have no cover during this passage. It's just a cover from here. It's no cover from here. So you're forced to go into this messy box area where they can shoot you from here, from here, from here. So you take fire for a lot of different directions, and the protection isn't sufficient. And they can also get on top of things. They can shoot down at you. I mean, if you look at the map, theoretically, you could be able to flank out here because there is space. The problem is there is no cover at all. It's just open field. So, and they can get on top of things. They can go in front here, and they can go in front here, and they can go on top of this. So you are really exposed. This Russian spawn over here is actually really, really bad, despite it being asymmetrical. As always, DICE seems to love to just tilt it up and down all the way. So in this case, north is actually down here, and south is up here, which is absolutely mad. That means that when I'm going through this now, I'm going to get so confused. This is very linear. You have C1, B1, A1 if you go from US. And this is one of the times where I always played US. I mean, here again, there is a lot of open space. If you can't keep C1 or one of the others, you are in really deep trouble. If you come on the Russian side, you could probably go along this part here and push in from that side. You kind of can go down here, but it's not a lot of protection. So, I mean, it would be rough as well. So, preferably both teams wants to keep some objective over here. This objective is inside the building, but keeping the control over the top of the building is actually really useful, because you can shoot down on everyone on both sides. If you get into this is actually a good map, I think. It's a little bit different. You have to be aware of your sight lines a lot more, because it's a bit more compressed. So for instance, if you go over here, you don't want to run around the middle of the street. You really want to keep the building, go close to the building, next building. Go close to it. Don't go in the middle here if there are enemies in B1. Try to keep it on the outside. Try to make it to the doors as fast as possible. You don't have to go through the doors. You have to go close to the doors, because then it's harder for those on top to shoot you. And, well, it's nothing more to it, really. So Stranded is one of the maps that before we started to play, I said that this is probably the perfect map for this one, because you have this like central route, you have a flank route on both sides inside the ship, and then you have actually a little bit of a flank route outside the ship. The problem, I played as US all the times, by the way. No, I didn't actually. I played on both sides on this map. Brilliant. This is the only map where I played on both sides, I think. So what you can actually do is that sometimes if you have B1, you might spawn on top of the ship. If you have a spawn beacon in that position, it's great, because then your team can spawn on top of the ship and you can go down these hatches if you want, or you can stay on top and just kill people. It's super valuable. So if you can keep that position, it's great. Otherwise, if you manage to get control over 2 or even 3 of these and you are US, you can actually spawn rape Russia really, really bad. So the thing that DICE have made that I think is a little bit weird is that the do you know the balcony here on the Russian side? US can go on top of it and quite far into it, which makes it really hard for Russia to take control of it and push back. Especially if they are pushed back all the way. Then you need to run outside on either this side or that side, and you need to basically slow push that. And I think this side is preferable if these little players, as long as there's some pressure up here or there, because you can go all the way to the door, and you need to do that. Here you can actually, as defenders, keep the door and push the attackers so they are behind the container, which is a great way to zone off. And you see, you can't really go outside here because then you would be outside the map. So that's kind of the negative part. Otherwise, I think this map is actually the ones that brings the best action, because it's built for it, and you have covers and you can push forward into the covers, and it's no like really long sight lines or anything. If you look at these, first of all, we have the Arica Harbor. We have talked about that one. We have Breakaway. We have talked about that one because there's not much to say. I mean, I haven't been outcapped on this one. I'm not sure you can be outcapped because US has access to A1 and B1, and they can go for C1 because, well, it's not a really good flank route, but they can do it. They're quite exposed if you go over here. Russia has access to all, and there's nothing really to it. What we faced that was quite annoying was someone having spawn beacons inside this building or on top of it, and they just kept coming. And I mean, it's half the way to run, so it's actually on C1 really quick, and it's fairly quick to B1 as well. Caspian border, I don't think we talked too much about that. Well, it's actually kind of even, but I would say that Russia has more covers, because this isn't really covers, right? You have the building here and then it's open space, so then you would push over here and then go there, while in this case you can actually go straight for it basically. I mean, it's kind of pros and cons on this one. As a Russian to push into B1, it's quite possible, right? As the US has to push into B1, well, if Russia have been fortifying the right positions here, it can actually be really hassle. But well, I think it's fine. We talked about Discarded, we talked about Renewal, and we talked about Stranded. Yeah, so that's all of them.